Hi, everyone. I'm Dave Hanrahan, CEO and co-founder of Kredit. Thanks for joining us for another session of Inside Debt Settlement. Today, we're talking about the evolution of the debt settlement process, and I'm really excited to be chatting with Jeff. He has worked at a couple different of the larger debt settlement firms, helping drive a lot of their automation. Currently, he's over at Americor, and Jeff, I tell you this all the time, but I think you've got one of the best appreciations for how automation can work at scale, and really drive engagement with the lenders and servicers on debt settlement accounts. So, appreciate you joining and having a conversation today.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking forward to it. Like I said, we talk quite a bit, so this is just kind of like a normal talk. But yeah, happy, and honored to do it.
Cool, cool. So let's just start with the traditional way things have worked. Obviously you've been in the industry for a long time and kind of seen that evolution process. But describe kind of the creditor collaboration process 10 years ago. That was kind of the starting point.
Yeah, sure. So I started back in 2012, and at that time, it was very manual. The fragmented processes, the phone calls, faxes, emails back and forth in negotiations. At
Hmm.
that time, that could take days, sometimes depending on the firm, could take weeks. The settlement process was not only inefficient between debt settlement company and the creditor, it was slowing down customers' progress. I
Yeah.
think towards becoming debt free, which that's when you know um, at that time it was like the only process. And I don't think that you know anybody thought that there was a better way to do it at this time. I think now,
Yeah.
people are realizing there's a better way to do this, for sure.
Yeah. The tech has come a long way. Now with all the AI stuff, it's like, man, changes a lot of the paradigms.
Yeah, for sure. I
Yeah.
think the first program, back in that day when we were just trying to get with automation was a Visual Basic program. So,
Yep.
it was just running and trying to take an Excel file and mix it up. But yeah, it was the calling was still the better way to go. And I'm not sure. I was just talking to someone else and I can't think who it was. But it seems like the limit on the calls at that time used to be five. You could go over five accounts per call. And I don't know
Hmm.
who set that limit, but all the firms and everybody you talk to was like, we can only do five. So you would go over five accounts, you would hang up the phone, you'd call
Yeah.
back, get the same exact person you were just talking to, and say, hey, I have another five accounts because we had a ton of accounts. And
Yep.
no one thought, what happens if we do 10 accounts? Let's just double let's just double the process for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good time, uh, it's definitely glad the improvements came when they did.
Yeah. Yeah. What were some of the more manual bottlenecks in the traditional phone-based negotiation process that maybe took more time? Is it around getting the POAs confirmed or just getting the offers back and forth? How do you think about that?
Yeah, let's just start right at the very beginning is the POA or ATC, whatever you're sending. It was forever. One, it was manual for us to pull it. So you're
Hmm.
getting into your CRM, you're manually pulling it, you're faxing it, emailing, and then you're waiting for the other person to get it, and then they do get it or don't get it, and then you go on to the negotiations. So I'd say that was could take 1 to 2 days, and then the back and forth on the phone. You call them up, you're going through it. Usually, for me, I was writing stuff down at the time. I wasn't even typing things, so I would
Yeah.
write down the settlement offer, and then you couldn't get a letter, and then 3 days later, the person calls me, like, "Oh, did you say the settlement amount was such and such?" And you're like, "No, it's this." And they're like, "Oh, okay, hold on, we'll have it over." So it was just the back and forth where like it was, not one single time you're talking to this person, which I guess you're building the relationship, but
Yep.
you're talking to this person three or four times about the same thing, and then the letter comes and the letter's wrong, and then you're like,
Yeah.
now the letter's wrong. So you're looking at a week there, just to get one settlement done for somebody. So yeah, the bottlenecks were mainly just timing on the ATC, getting that into their system. I wasn't aware at the time. as I am now some operations on the other side. So I'm like, what are they doing? Why does it take 5 days to get the ATC, uploaded?
Yeah.
What is that? So it was just, I think there was bottlenecks on both sides, and it just was just a big problem.
Right. What do you think the catalyst was for some of those phone-based negotiations to start translating through to more automated interactions, either file swapping or going through and maybe expanding like the capacity of you can do this many accounts per phone calls. Was it regulatory? Was it just capacity constraints as things have scaled and debt settlements become more mainstream?
Yeah, I don't think so much from what I've seen it being regulatory, but I think
Mhm.
it was just I think it was like once one person did it, then they found out you could say, "Hey, we're doing it this way." We
Yeah.
have creditor A, and we say we're working a list exchange, or they're letting us do an unlimited amount of accounts over the phone. We say, "Hey, creditor B, um, this is kind of what this other creditor is doing. It's worked great. Do you want to
Yeah.
try it?"
Go talk to them.
Yeah, yeah, or go talk to
Yeah.
them. So I think that's where like that real collaboration started
Mhm.
between debt settlement companies and the creditors or law firms or banks or what have you. That's where that real collaboration started. Is like they realized we're trying to help, but some places are doing it this way and it's working. What do you think about you trying it? So I think that was really the catalyst for it. Is they saw the speed and efficiency with others, and they were like, then they're talking and they're saying, "Oh, do you do this?" And they're like, "Yeah, yeah, we do that." So and we even
Yeah.
see that now as we progress forward. There's others that are not in the industry that we can use some of our partners on the other side to say, can you help them out and show them how? And then when they do it, they're like, I didn't realize this was so easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's definitely a big win for everybody involved.
I mean, what's crazy is you can take a team of 20 at a lender and reduce that down to a team of one or two, and and a lot of those tricks on how to do that and the automation. It's pretty straightforward, but it's just a matter of the trust for sure. As you think through the you know industry continuing to scale through that, obviously there's a lot of areas that AI can have applications. Frankly, it's almost overkill for a lot of specific
Yeah.
circumstances, and you just need some basic rules logic.
Yeah.
But how do you think of that the automation continuing to help modernize the settlement process?
Like you mentioned the big buzzword all over is AI, AI, and everybody wants to
Yeah.
to 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 implement AI, and but I think the automation, the list exchange process is, I mean, it's pretty standard now.
Hmm.
And I think uh, in most debt settlement companies have some sort of list exchange, whether they have it on the other end where they're, you know, they could still have it where they're getting the list back and then a person's going through it. Well, then
Right.
you would need to automate it there in manual. But let's just say you're on this full where everything's automated and there's not really any human intervention. I think that the one big thing that I see is accounts that we just can't locate for whatever reason.
Hmm.
And I really see that for the firms that have it completely automated, that's going to be the next big win, because we need to have we need to be able to locate those accounts. These are what we're doing is we're, the customer is wondering what's going on with their account. They've could had it in the program, for 3 years and it's still sitting, but we just can't locate the account.
Yeah.
Now I think
Bank A sold it to debt buyer who placed it with a collections
yeah,
agency who
yeah.
then passed it to a law firm. It's like, it's a like whack-a-mole.
Yeah, yeah. So I have a lot of contacts on that other side, and if nobody can find it, like somebody has to be able to find it somewhere. But it's very labor intensive to do that,
Yeah.
to have a person do that, right? Calling up, figuring out. I mean, this person could spend 3 hours out of their day to locate one account. So I think that's where the next evolution is going to come with the AI, is putting AI on this to kind of look around and dig for these accounts and figure out where they're at. I think that's going to be um, the big win for AI that I see. I think we're far if you're looking far in the future, I think that we're far off where an AI bot is going to talk to an AI bot and you know negotiate accounts. I think the
Yeah.
list change process and you know it, it isn't going anywhere for the foreseeable future. I think we're far off from that, but
Yeah.
that would be the main evolution. But I think just incorporating AI when you can, just like we did with automation, like
Mhm.
automation when it comes in into a company and they don't have automation, everybody's fear is I'm going to lose my job.
Yeah.
I love what I'm doing, and I might not be able to do it. But there's always going to be, uh, you know, something for them to do. Not every creditor is going to be on the list exchange process. There's credit unions and things like that that get in there. So I think even with this AI coming in, part of the thing is there's always going to be human intervention needed in this process somewhere. And I think blending automation and AI with, you know, human intervention is going to be the best bet.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things we hear talking to a lot of lenders and debt settlement firms is the nature of debt settlement. It's really a almost an asset management business. It's really like a liability management business where you're trying to help the consumer with their full picture. And to your point on locating those other accounts, working a credit card account is pretty straightforward. In this day and age, going through and trying to help somebody work through their healthcare bills or their insurance or their utility bills and things like that, where it's lower balances and there's more nuance to it. Like there's a lot of other stuff that doesn't get focused on today that could absolutely be uh, you know helpful to the consumer to add those in and get even more of that full picture there. So yeah,
Yeah,
totally agree with you. Like there's been a lot of change in the work, but it's definitely not.
you,
There's
you
not going to be no work to do.
you nailed it because like automation, we'll take it. When a customer joins up for the program, we're not going to say we're going to settle your easiest accounts that we can settle it through automation, right? That's
Yeah,
not our goal. Our goal is to, you know, have the customer be debt free. So we have to settle everything, and
yeah,
some of that stuff is not easy, for sure. So yeah,
yeah.
it's location though is the biggest part of it.
What are some of the key components you've seen work well with automation? Is it like super helpful around like data ingestion or like offer logic and approvals and stuff like that? Like just to make it kind of tactical for those listening, like where are the easy wins when it comes to automation?
Yeah, I'd say the first thing, if you're going from just the phone to automation, the first thing is the data that you're receiving. If
Hmm.
you're going back and forth with a creditor, the data, like I said, are reading off a spreadsheet. They could read it wrong. If you go through automation and you're getting the data directly, both parties are working off. This is the source of truth that we have here, and it's in writing. Nobody said it
Yeah.
over the phone. It wasn't given just verbally. So this is the source of truth. You're saying that this account is, is what it is. This is the account number. This is all the data. And then for just the automation, just the terms are provided. A lot of these companies will give multiple terms, and like I said, I realize that not everybody, it's kind of like a tug of war. Like we want low percentage and more pays,
Hmm.
and this over here would want the funds faster, and they
Yeah.
want it in the quickest amount of time. So there's got to be some sort of balance. So that list exchange really says most places will put on a few different offers of what they can do, and then we'll run it through and make sure what's best for our client, what our client can afford. And I think that's uh, the efficiency of the list exchange because we can do multiple offers, multiple runs, and make sure everybody's happy on each side of the
Oh
fence.
yeah. I mean that affordability simulation is, I think a lot of people skip over it, but it is a super time intensive thing to do over and over again. And the ability for automation to say, hey, like, what's the consumer's budget look like? Can they afford this offer? Could be a great offer, could be a bad offer, but like if it's
Yeah,
not affordable, it's not affordable. So like, yeah, that makes all the sense in the world.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
as you think through the collaboration, obviously, for peak automation, it takes some participation from lenders to go through.
Hmm.
And it's not just about the data exchange, it's about like you actually helping them see internal improvements. How do you think about communicating the efficiency gains to the creditor side, especially if they haven't been involved in an efficient debt settlement operation before, and like what the KPIs are that they should kind of look for changes in?
Yeah. Yeah. I just went through this actually with, somebody that was unfamiliar with the process, and brought them through it. And I think the first part is understanding, kind of what we're trying to do, and what I always start off like the first conversation I have with somebody new is, what are your goals on this? And then I say, here's how we've done it in the past, and does that work for you? So you just kind of lay out kind of the basic groundwork and see how they want to change it, if they
Mhm.
need changes to it. So once you get the process down where, it's usually, hey, we need our file this way, maybe in a text document, maybe pipe delimited, whatever. We'll send it. They'll, send it back with the offers. We'll run it through. And then how do you want those offers? Do you want to break them down? Do you have automation on your end where you need to be able to read a file specifically? Is a big one. Sometimes, we'll send it over and they're like, we can't do nothing like this. We upload this and our engineering team handles it and they need it this way. And then you
Mhm.
say, oh, okay, yeah, no problem. So I think you just have to really get a good process that works for everybody. And then after that, a lot of places when you first get started, they might provide, let's just say, just to keep this simple, I'm going to say they provide 100 offers and you send 10 back, you can settle. Well, the first question is, well, why can't we settle all 100? Well,
Yeah.
you have to explain to them, and,
It's
and
because the
help them
consumer needs
understand.
cash right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you have to like explain to them on the other end. And that's when you build that collaboration. I think, you
Yeah.
know, if you go back to when I started, like, everything was kind of, you've held everything close to your chest. But now I think we're realizing that that's not the way. The more, like, obviously we can't provide, you know, a- all the information that the other side wanted, just like they're not going to provide, they're not going to tell us, hey, here's our legal strategy and here's what we do. We're not going to tell them
Yeah.
exactly what we do. But I think we can tell them information that's going to benefit them, whether that's like, hey, this client doesn't have funds, but in 3 months they will have funds. So, just kind of give them a projection of what's going to be in the future. It really helps them out. Or why didn't this, creator, hey, we can't locate this one. All these ones had no match in our system. And then, which is another, that could probably take up this entire time, Dave, with the matching, like things,
Yeah.
whether it's on our end, their end, something's not matching. And before, like there was really nothing done with those, but now we're getting collaborative where you can say, hey, can you help us locate these? Is there something, is the client social off that we're matching on? Is it the account number that we don't have correct? Data integrity is everything. If you got to have the correct data to get anything done. So I think it's, you know, building that relationship and then helping each other. Like what are the KPIs on our end and your end? And can we get to some middle ground where we're trying to help you out as much as possible, but
Yeah.
realizing that our client they could have 10 accounts. I mean, if it'd be a
Right.
lot easier if you were the only account. We would do it
Mhm.
all day long, but that's not the nature of the business. We have a client that has you know a lot of accounts that we have to get settled and taken care of. So we would love to settle everything for one person, but that's not that's not how
Yeah.
it works.
And frankly, it feels like there's so much uh, administrative stuff to work on getting the efficiency out of that. It's like, okay, defer the areas where there's conflict or diverging incentives to later. There's 1,000 things that make things more operationally and efficient, or better infosec policies and stuff like that. It's just like there's so much area. I think one of the areas we find ourselves spending a lot of time is just asking people on the lender side, like leading questions, like, hey, like here's the 15 things you need to form an opinion on about working with the debt settlement firm, and like they might only know of 5 of those things coming in that they actually needed to take an opinion on. So it's like, okay, well, here's 10 other questions you should ask. And if you don't know the answers now, like we can help you understand what those different opinions are you could take. But a lot of that stuff, if you're doing this engagement for the first time, like there's no realistic way you would know those types of things. And that's where, like,
Right.
I think your guys' strategy of engaging flexibly with folks and others' strategy to be consultative and be like, hey, just FYI, like, lender, you're gonna come across these 5 things in about a month or two. So we'll just tell you what those are now, so you can
Yeah.
start to get ahead of it. Like lenders really, really appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a person that helps me out on my team that's kind of created like an onboarding process, and each like it
Hmm.
started off as like one sheet, and she's like, "Hey, will you review this?" And now it's like 5 sheets long. So like she's like, "Oh yeah, this
Yeah.
person wanted that," and then like we've kind of, for a law firm or whoever, we've kind of, edited it so it fits their needs too. So I think that's cool, and that's something I've never seen before. Like a nice onboarding process. You can say, "Hey, here's what to expect.
Hmm.
Here's how our automation you should expect. Offers back within the hour or things like that." And then you set some expectations. They're like, "Oh, okay, this is cool. This makes sense." So yeah, it really helped with the last one we did. I mean, there was like no questions because it's all written, and then it's a shareable document, so they can reference back to it and say, "Oh, okay, this is how it doesn't make sense." So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned earlier that, in the old form of phone-based negotiations, you'd be building rapport with folks, by being on the phone 4 or 5 times a day, talking about these accounts. And I hear from some firms that, hey, automation might reduce that meaningful engagement between counterparties, and that they like that engagement because it lets you go through and troubleshoot things effectively. How do you think about that engagement maybe changing in format when there's more automated processes back and forth, such that you're not on the phone 24/7 all the time?
Yeah, and I figured you were going to ask something like this because
Yeah.
that's one of the things with automation AI. They're like, well, what am I going to do? I'm just going to talk to an AI bot all
Yeah.
day and not ever talk to anybody. So that's
Yeah.
I think really what we have to do is we try to have the meetings, at least a monthly meeting, just to touch base and say, how's everything going? Are these any
Mhm.
pain points that are happening? Um, you know, uh, then also I'm pretty open myself, but I'm always open for a call from anybody on the other side at any time. But I really think you have to keep up that human interaction by that's why we have these conferences and things like that,
Yeah.
because you really get to see everybody and just kind of like really connect, and there might be nothing groundbreaking that comes out of that, but really you just got to. A lot of these times I go to them, they're like, I've been talking to you for 10 years and it's the first time I saw you. Like
Yeah.
it's kind of funny. So you get that. And then if you do have an issue, and let's just say it's even not directly related to that specific creditor or bank or whatever, you can say, "Hey, are you seeing this on your side? Like I'm seeing this, what's going on?" And you have that person you can call and reach out to, for sure. And Dave, I'm gonna shout out to you. That's why I always thought on your platform you have that chat option, because
Mhm.
that's so cool. Like because emails are one thing, calls are one thing, but like in this
Yeah.
this age, a Slack, a chat. I'm gonna answer a chat. Like if somebody chats me and they're like, "Hey, this is an emergency," I'm probably gonna get it before an email that I might get, an hour later
Yeah.
because I've been
Your
stuck.
your thousand deep inbox just sitting there,
Yeah,
gathering dust.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
I think that's just the real time. That was real cool to build that collaboration. But I think
Yeah.
yeah, you have to keep that up as we move more into automation, as the company moves more into automation, more into AI. You
Mhm.
just can't lose that, because once you lose that, then you're not talking to somebody that's real, or you're just
Right.
you're talking to a process or a robot. So I think the collaboration, I think, with AI coming in and automation coming in, I think the collaboration is more important than it was then when we got started and we're first building it. It's more important to keep that collaboration and keep that open lines of communication, keep having those meetings, at least monthly to say, is everything working all right? Do you see any problems with things? And it's a way for also others to join. Sometimes I have others from my team join the meeting just to
Hmm.
get familiar with what we're trying to do. If we're going to move a creditor to uh, the list exchange, I'll
Yeah.
have people join that used to call them up, even though they're not going to be working it anymore because it's going automated, just to understand like what we're trying to do here and how it's going to work. And that's been beneficial. People have reached out to me and said, hey, this is great. I learned something. I didn't know anything about that. Now I feel much better about what my goal is. And now they're like, should we have other creditors be on list exchange? I'm like, well, it's the most
Yeah.
efficient. So don't look at it as it's going list exchange and now you're not going to have a job. It's going list
Right.
exchange and then you work on this other creditor to say, hey, there's a better way to do this. I enjoy talking to you, but there's a better way to do this, and you're going to move over to this team, and they're going to take care of you, and they have monthly meetings, and we'll collaborate with you. So it's going to be a seamless process to transfer you over.
Yeah. And it's definitely becoming more mainstream to have those collaborative relationships, where there's still counterparty relationships. It's not like, everybody's on the same team, but there's also a lot of organizations, left that aren't quite at that point in their, collections strategy maturity, such that, there's just so much work to do there. Yeah, totally agree. Like once you get past those administrative things and you can spend more time talking about, hey, what is the, liquidation on these accounts? What are the things that you as a debt settlement firm see across this consumer's holistic, picture that frankly a lot of lenders, like they'll maybe have some trade lines they can see and stuff like that, but they don't see the trending as freshly as debt settlement firms do. And there's a lot of stuff these days that's not credit reported that the lenders can't see. So I mean, that's one where we see lenders starting to rely heavily on the feedback from debt settlement to say, hey, like debt settlement firm has an early view of what's happening to the consumer. What should the lenders start to think about with their broader loan portfolio to get ahead of that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I on your first I don't know if it was the first one you did these, but
Hmm.
I'm just blanking the person you had on there, but a
Yeah,
lot of
John.
good
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah. A lot of good stuff that that he had from way back in the industry,
Hmm.
which was cool. And I think that's one thing I would like to see. Um, if we're kind of going to pivot a little bit to collaboration, is collaboration between debt settlement companies, which I don't think, is as prevalent as it should be. I think there's some lenders that or some debt settlement companies that aren't far on their journey. They're just starting and they don't know much about automation. And I think that, you could really you can learn a lot from anybody. I mean, I listen, uh you do those great things that I see on LinkedIn, and I watch everything, like just because there might be something that I don't know. I've been in the industry for coming up on 15 years, but I learned something new, from somebody else. So I think that's what I'd like to see. Like we have to, as like a collection of debt settlement companies, have to work together to make sure everybody on the other side is getting structured information. It's the same information.
Yep.
I think that's really what we need to do on our side is really collaborate to make sure everybody's providing not only the same information to the other side.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Makes sense. As you think through process design, Jeff, like I know you come from, a product background and engineering background. How do you think about like the underlying principles in designing those different processes so that they scale up over time for those larger creditors who you're going to have a lot of throughput with?
Yeah. So I think um, the main uh, the main thing is you have to, when you're building, like I said, I start off with the Visual Basic program in there. Obviously that's going to be scalable. Um,
Yeah.
but I think you really have to build these processes so they just can be replicated over and over. Like it's the same process. It's structured. Obviously, not every creditor returns the list the same way. So if you built one process, let's just say, if you build a process that says read this file and read these columns and create this off, that's not going to work. You have to build a structured process that can be used you know, for any creditor, no matter what the creditor does. They change the layout of the list. They put a column here, and now that's going to break your program. I think you have to build something that can be scalable. On your own. You should be formatting that list how it needs to run through. So when you have a new creditor, you don't come to your engineering team and say, okay,
Yeah.
here's a new creditor, guys. Like, we got to add this one comes in like this, and we got to have this is this. Then they're going to look at you and think, this is the 40th one I've done of these. Like, why don't we just create one structured way? Now, I was naive at the time when I thought, um, well, why can't we just ask every creditor to return the list the same way?
Yeah.
Then I realized after talking about
Way too much sense.
3 or
Yeah.
4, they're like, no. So I'm like, okay, we got to adjust on our end, and we got to make sure that we have it. And then it's also, I think, just going back to that collaboration. Like, I wouldn't say to a creditor, hey, we spit out an Excel file and it's formatted this way, so this is the way you got to take it. Like, we say, hey, what can we do to make it easier for you? Do you have a person that's, manually typing all this stuff in where it's easier to read, this line first and go on? Or do you have some automation where it's dropping in, it's reading columns? We're going to, put it on whatever way you can. And I think
Yep.
also with that scalability, you can't lose sight of, accounts that are not matching. Once again, I'll go back to it, right? If we send a file of 500 and the creditor returns 250, if you get automation, you could just be putting that through and run it through and never question, is this creditor returning all these accounts? Like, what happened to these other accounts here? So I think outside of automation, you have to build some other process to make sure that they're returning the same amount of data
Yeah.
to have it. And then, uh, one thing that can be beneficial too is the letter creation. Some places where, like, hey, if you can create the letter and send it to us, that's easiest, for us. So I think just trying to do what's the easiest for the creditor to make the process as easy for them.
Yeah.
Is the key.
And obviously there's if you turn it into like a 2x2, there's the very sophisticated technical firms that have a lot of resources. And then there's the firms that have a lot of humans, and it's not as automated, but they can still get the job done. But then you also have you've got banks, you've got credit unions, you got collections law firms, you got debt buyers, collections agencies, like different considerations with each organization type. So like, yeah, your point on the adaptability, the consumer doesn't care about each type of organization. They're like, listen, I have an account and I need to resolve it. Please help me with that process. So it's like, okay, well, it's a lot of complication to manage, but that's the name of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's that's it. No matter what credit, no matter if it's 10 accounts, 100 accounts, thousands of accounts, some of these firms, almost 100,000 accounts, you have to build the process on your end so it can handle anything and and do it in a structured way. So, you you just have a process that can just be used over and over. You're not changing the process per creditor. That's the main thing. And that's, I think, how some places start out. They're changing the process for the creditor. And really, you just need to change the process on your end to meet the needs of each creditor.
Yes, sometimes the creditor might want something, but the thing that's best for them long term is actually something else.
Yeah.
Which maybe that's a good way to bring it home. Outcomes really matter at the end of the day, and that's the point of a lot of this automation. How do you think about the outcomes you see, whether it's resolution rates or consumer satisfaction or creditor ROI? How do you think about those different outcomes on the lender side thinking like, hey, like, is it worth me uh, taking my limited attention and spending it on this subject?
Yeah. So I think, if you go back, to a creditor that joins the list exchange, I think the first thing they realize is, wow, we used to have to go through all these offers. Now we're getting these offers all at once. Um, so I think that, you know, on the lender side, I think from a list exchange, going from a phone call to a list exchange, the biggest benefit is going to be transparency from us, because we're able to give all that transparency to them,
Mm,
right off the bat. Whether it's a resolution, of course, they like the resolutions, but
yeah.
also if there's not, you get that transparency on the other accounts. Like I brought up the example earlier, like we can say, hey, these clients don't have funds now, but these and you know, Mr. Smith, Mr. Jones, and Mr. Thomas, they're going to have funds next month. So look for them on the next list. And we can really build, so then they can build on their pipeline of, okay, this is, what we're looking at for future months. I think that's the biggest win for them. And then also, another thing I didn't mention also is when you're on the list exchange, we can tell them in real time these clients are no longer in the program, so they can
Yeah.
go through. They could be sitting at calling on accounts, and five they call in a row, and a person on our end says, oh, this client, they canceled the program, or they're not drafting or something like that, and they're like, wow, man, this stinks. But now that's in real time, so we can give all that information back to them and say, hey, this client is no longer in the program. So then you can switch your what you need to do when it gets out of that bucket, whatever bucket you have it in there, and you can start calling the client directly. So everything, the last probably 3 points that we made, everything goes back
Mhm.
to transparency and collaboration
Yeah.
of the list exchange for sure. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. Which in this world where, there's employment issues starting to surface, there's affordability issues, across the country. Like, there's that transparency to know where everybody stands is going to become just so valuable, I think, to lenders, so that they can understand, hey, what do they need to do either on their origination side or credit decision wise to just go through and be like, hey, like, we got to get our arms around the delinquency risk. And debt settlement organizations can be a really good partner in that, especially like it seems dumb to me that ability to ingest a massive amount of data is the thing blocking lenders from having this information. Is if lenders can simply open up the fire hose of incredible amounts of data and forward guidance. Obviously, there's some things you don't want to share
Yeah.
in the consumer's best interest, but there's a lot of things that can be shared.
Yeah, absolutely. That's finding that balance of what can be shared, and like, sharing that, that's going to be the big win,
Totally.
and needed going forward for sure.
Yeah. How do you think about the ability to go through and limit some of the compliance side? Like, one of the things we often see from lenders is they want to be careful at like the consent management and things like that. Are there different ways to go through and automate, things like POA and consent sharing to help lenders get a lot more comfort about like having all the documentation on file that they need to?
Yeah, and that was something that came up at a recent conference, and I was surprised. I didn't think that was an issue. So, we have an ATC or a POA for each client, and I think the most simplest way is to get a statement of authorization from the other side there to say, hey, we have ATC, we have proof that they're our
Hmm.
client, and we would send it when needed. And a lot of them do that, and it's the easiest way to get everything done, because we'll every month, 2 weeks or a week, whatever, they can say, hey, we're doing an audit, can you send us these, and we'll send it over. So I think that kind of uh, eases, especially moving to a statement of authorization, or whatever somebody
Yeah.
calls it. A lot of, I'm sure the legal compliance on their side is like, oh, a little leery of that. But once we get through those first couple where we say, hey, we do have this on file, we'll send it to you whenever, is is huge for us. And I think it's just, Yeah, compliance on the other side is also, even with the list exchange, with the data exchange, how are we exchanging the data? We come
Hmm.
across some of these new lenders and creditors that say, listen, we're just going to email this back and forth. I'm like, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
Let's pause
Slow
there.
your roll.
We got to be compliant on our end. So
Uh,
it's kind of like teaching them, maybe you got to set up an FTP,
yeah.
for them to exchange the data. Getting our legal team involved in saying, hey, this is what we do and this is how we do it, and having them understand,
Hmm.
what we do, and then does that work for them? And maybe it doesn't. Maybe there's a piece that they can't have, but it doesn't mean we can't work. Maybe they say, hey, we just don't want the social for whatever reason. I'm just throwing that out there. We say, hey,
Yeah.
we can work with that. We can send you this other piece of information where we get the social. So I think it's really making sure that the compliance is on both sides. And then also just like with the list exchange, you have to kind of do what the creditor needs will be the best
Yeah.
bet to move forward. It's usually on our end, we can pretty much work, uh, you know, with anything in reason, but like we
Yeah.
want to make sure that you're comfortable, you're compliant on your end, and everything we're following everything that we need to.
Yeah. And that really brings it back to what you mentioned earlier, which is understanding the process and taking the time to thoroughly explain every step of the way. So I've seen you do that many times over for different folks. So, for the lenders out there, definitely reach out to Jeff if you got questions. He's a wealth of knowledge. But Jeff, really appreciate you jumping on and doing this today, for folks to come back and watch later. Again, if you're a creditor or servicer or just a settlement firm, I think Jeff's got a good sense of what the future looks like, and he's been a part of some very large and scaled operations. So he kind of sees the future there. For more conversations like this, if you're ready to explore automation, please join us. We'll be continuing to do these. So again, Jeff, thanks for joining.